So, what really started the American Civil War? It's a question that sounds simple, right? But the answer, well, it's this huge, complex web of conflict. In this explainer, we're going to go beyond the battles and untangle the core issues that literally tore a nation in two. And that brings us to the big question that historians still debate today. Was the Civil War just inevitable? Or was there some tipping point, a moment where the country could have stepped back from the edge? To even begin to answer that, we have to peel back all the layers. So think of this kind of like a detective story. We're going to follow the clues one by one that led to this national catastrophe. All right, let's dive right in. And honestly, there's only one place to start. If you want to understand the war, you have to begin with the single foundational issue at its heart. Look, while a lot of factors were swirling around, it's absolutely crucial to get this. Slavery was the central underlying cause. Every other conflict grew out of it. This wasn't just some political issue. It was an institution that was completely woven into the very fabric of the South's economy and its whole way of life. And this slide just lays out the impossible divide perfectly. In the North, you had this growing movement that saw slavery as a total moral evil, a stain on the country. But in the South, it was fiercely defended as essential, the engine of their economy, the basis of their social order, even a property right. I mean, where's the middle ground there? There isn't one. So if slavery was the fire, what was the fuel that made it burn so hot? Well, there were two huge factors that basically took this core disagreement and just amplified it across the nation, creating what was truly a great divide. First up, you have the argument over states' rights. This really became the constitutional battleground. Southern states argued that they had the right to make their own laws without the federal government stepping in, and what they were really talking about was their right to protect and continue the institution of slavery. And this right here is the key. The rallying cry might have been states' rights, but you always have to ask the question, the right to do what? And the specific right being defended, the one that truly mattered to their cause, was the right to own other human beings and to expand that system into new American territories. The second big amplifier? A massive economic divide. The U.S. was basically two different economic worlds in one country. You had the industrializing North, with an economy built on factories and free labor. Then you had the agrarian South, a global powerhouse built almost entirely on the backs of enslaved people. And these two systems, they wanted completely different things from the government. Let's put some numbers on this, because it really shows the difference. The North had a population of 22 million. That huge population powered its factories and created a massive market for its own goods, giving it a huge advantage. Now compare that to the South, where out of a total population of 9 million, a jaw-dropping 4 million people were enslaved. Just think about that for a second. This wasn't some small piece of the Southern economy. It was the foundation of the Southern economy. And if you're asking why that system was defended so fiercely, this number tells you everything: 75%. By the 1860s, the American South was producing 3/4 of the entire world's cotton. It's a staggering fact, and it's why Southern leaders truly believed cotton was king. They thought the world's dependence on them made them untouchable. So you've got these deep, irreconcilable divisions. And then a series of political crises start to unfold, one after another, and each one pushes the nation further and further down a path where compromise just wasn't possible anymore. It was like a countdown to conflict. Okay, let's walk through this timeline because it's like watching a series of dominoes fall. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise puts a temporary bandage on things. But by 1850, a new compromise forces the hated Fugitive Slave Act on the North, making them complicit. Then in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act leads to actual guerrilla warfare in Bleeding, Kansas. In 1857, the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision basically says slavery is legal everywhere. And finally, John Brown's raid in 1859 terrifies the South. With every single step, the tension just ratchets up, and any chance for compromise just evaporates. So all of that brings us to the tipping point. The political system had completely failed, the divisions were deeper than ever before, and one final event was about to ignite the entire powder keg. And that catalyst was the election of Abraham Lincoln. Now, his platform wasn't to abolish slavery where it already existed, but it was to stop its expansion into any new territories. For the slaveholding states, this was seen as a direct threat to their entire way of life and, really, to their future. And just look at how fast the nation unraveled after that. Lincoln gets elected in November. Just 1 month later, South Carolina's out. By February, before Lincoln has even taken the oath of office, the Confederacy is formed. The break was just incredibly swift and decisive. And then came the first shots. When Confederate forces fired on the Federal troops at Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, that was it. The time for talking was over. This was the point of no return. Political conflict had officially become armed conflict. So was the war inevitable? Looking back, what we see is this foundational conflict over slavery that got inflamed by huge economic and political divides, and then it was pushed over the edge by crisis after crisis. It wasn't just one thing, it was a chain reaction. And that leaves us with a final, really important question. Knowing how all these threads were woven together, how does this history help us understand the deep fault lines that, in many ways, still exist in America today?